We say happy Monday. We're talking about commission conversation. We're talking about addendas. We're talking about all things. We really don't really need to talk, I don't think, too much about clear cooperation because we did talk about that in our meeting, unless somebody would like to ask any questions on that. Because we did talk about it in our new sales meetings that are back, which are not new anymore, but that will be happening the first Thursday of every month in Lake Nona. But Trip, I do want to give you an opportunity before we jump in. Is there anything you'd like to share with our wonderful volatile market? What's happening with mortgages? Have they reacted at all since all this craziness have been announced and things had enacted as of Saturday? That's when the tariffs did actually start. You are muted. You are still muted.
There, I figured out how to unmute it. I kept hitting the unmute button. Well, let me just say first, I echo your sentiments about Florida. A few years ago, I had an opportunity to listen to the head of the economics department at UCF speak. His name is Sean Snaith.
Sounds
And
great.
he's fabulous. And the unique thing about Florida is we do have a constant inflow of people who are wanting to relocate here, retirees, and there's so many good businesses here because the state of Florida is, we don't have state taxes. There's a lot here. I'm not sure I would use this term, but he basically, said we have a lot of dummy inflow, and he doesn't mean that people are dumb, but he's just saying by way of the attractiveness of the state, we're going to have a lot of people just flowing in. So I would agree with what you just said. There's a lot of opportunity constantly coming into the state for sales.
I'm going to
Last
cut you
week,
off real quickly because I just want to add one thing, which you're just 100% right. And I love Chris Nape. He's fabulous. Also, another place that you all should be looking at during this crazy time is the Economic Development, EDC, Economic Development Council Economic Development Committee. I don't know, EDC. Solid data. They have great data that tells us who's coming, what's moving here. They're talking about incentives to why move to Orlando for businesses. We have a huge partnership with them at Aura. Cliff, along as our CEO at Aura, is actually a chairperson on the Economic Development Committee, or whatever, EDC council. I remember it's a council or committee. But anyway, so I just want to while you're talking about that, Trip, make sure you're looking at that. Great. You actually went to an event, Lisa. I had told you about that. Lisa went to an event and it was really fruitful. Yes.
What's the website, Carrie?
The website, EDC's website. I'll look at it while Trip is talking, then I'll share it.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll actually go to it. Go ahead, Trip. Sorry, we're cutting you off there.
Yeah, last week, obviously, with a tariff announcement, we saw the stock market tumble substantially.
Yeah.
And while I'm not going to say that is a good thing, it was a good thing for the bond market, which drives interest rates. And I locked a client on Friday afternoon at a rate of 6.99 with no points.
Oh,
so what we're seeing from this initially is that rates are falling, which is a good thing. I think that if they can kind of stay in the sixes, that would be a good thing for our markets. It's too soon to tell if this is a long-term thing. I think we need to see, more results from what this tariff looks like. President Trump is negotiating in public like he typically does. And at this point, I think he's starting to pressure the Fed to reduce interest rates. Now, whether they do or don't, I don't know. It's to be determined. But I think the next 90 days is going to be important and will probably give us a good indication of how the Fed feels and where rates may be going. But we're hoping that rates will fall this year.
Yes, I agree with that. Couldn't agree more. So thank you for sharing that. Anybody have questions for Trip? He's got some great information. And I think we're all going to obviously want to be keeping an eye on that. So we can definitely make sure we are keeping in pace, but Trip's going to be on our meetings every Monday. So we'll be looking forward to hearing your interesting rundown every Monday to see where we're at. So thanks so much, Trip. We appreciate you. All right.
Thank you.
I'm going to go ahead and share my screen for now. And here we go. And to answer your question, Ohana, Here we go. I'm going to send this. This is the website. It is called the Orlando.org. They got a really good website, except it isn't org. Here it is. And here you go. This is a great website y'all want to have. This is the Orlando Economic Partnership right here. This tells you all what's happening with businesses, programs, who's coming, invest in Orlando. Here's the economic development services, what they have in terms of key sectors, why Orlando, available properties, research, programs, leadership Orlando. This is all sorts of really great stuff that they have. They come into our meetings at the board of directors often. Really great stuff, tax incentives. So this is telling about all the things that they have here offered in Orlando that they're giving. And then they talk about who's investing with us and upcoming events that they have. So Lisa had gone to an upcoming event.
I went to their annual barbecue.
They have an.
It was in the creative center.
Oh,
Out there,
yeah.
whole thing was shut off. They had a band and
Like Mount
11 different no, it
Oh, the one
was
downtown. The creative center
Yeah.
downtown. Mhm.
11 different barbecues. You had to test them out and
That's each? Oh
and-
my
And
God.
I don't eat meat, so I had 11 macaroni and cheeses. I'm just like- But it was good. It was huge. Yeah. And they sent, and now I'm on their mailer list, so I get all of their insightful information.
So thank you. Yeah, but definitely keep an eye on this website. So it's orlando.org. Okay. Really great stuff going on that you'd want to keep in touch with. So, all right. Now getting back to the purpose of our meeting here today, we're going to talk about first the commission conversation. Unless somebody has a question, which I will open it up now that more people are on in regards to clear cooperation. Again, we spoke about it in our meeting on Thursday. Quick brief overview, NAR did uphold it. We are still continuing with clear cooperation. They're now doing clear cooperation with some flexibility, which is basically they're offering a delayed period, which will go into effect as of September 30th. The weird thing is that delayed period is per each MLS. Each MLS gets to decide how long the delayed period will be for. So that's interesting. So we don't know. So Stellar has not said anything. I'm on the Broker Advisory Council. We've not had a meeting since then, so I don't know what they are thinking. However, we have to wait and see. It's going to be more like a coming soon, and you'll have to file it like you file now if you have an office exclusive, if you want to use their delayed period. However, what I will tell you, which is a little bit interesting, because we belong to so many MLSs. Let's say you have a listing that you want to put not only in Stellar, but in Space Coast, which we do. Or you are in Citrus, Space Coast, and Stellar. Lord help us. Or you're in Citrus, Space Coast, Stellar, and Daytona Beaches. I hate you. No, I'm just kidding. I love you. They may all have different periods for their delayed. So we may, as an office, have to decide, if they're all different delayed periods, that we may not either allow you to put delayed in all 4 of them, because that may be an accounting nightmare for us to have to keep up with that, because they could have violations on each of them. And if we're like, just so you know, guys, if we handle it and there's a violation, we pay it. If you handle something and it's your mess up, you pay the violation. So I don't want to be responsible for violations in 5 boards. Okay, does that make sense? And clear cooperation violations in the past have been $2,500. Now, I don't know if it's going to continue with the $2,500 violation. I don't know, but it's not something I want to play with. So we're just going to have to wait and see. Kind of like everything, right? I sound like a legal hotline over here, but just to see what happens, because again, I'm not sure what it's going to be like in all boards or MLSs rather. So as we get closer, as I get more information, I will have Stellar's information before they release it, which is great. So I will let you know what I'm hearing, but that one's the one I'm going to be most interested in. Again, we do our own kind of private placement, which is, I also rolled out our new quiet exclusives. I'll be sending that to everybody. Quiet exclusives is the same thing as private placements, just cooler and sounds better. And that we do not need to file anything. I just want to say this one more time. We do not need to file anything if we're going to do a private placement. It's quiet exclusive, because unless you plan to sell it Then we need to file with MLS an office exclusive. What is the purpose, Carrie, of an office exclusive? Anybody? Anybody? To get credit for both sides. It's the only point. Because we have already written in the back of every listing agreement. Carrie, let's look at it. Okay, shall we? We shall. I'm just going to remind everybody. I know I have to have a conversation with myself, but I will because I love it. Seller and broker hereby acknowledge and agree that all terms, covenants, conditions contained in this listing agreement shall be and remain in full force and effect as of the date the listing agreement is fully executed. Meaning you sign it, you send it off, it is executed. That's why you have to sign it first, because then they sign it, now it's delivered. Right? They can download it, they can not download it. We don't really care. It's already delivered because it's signed. I don't have to sign this to be executed because you are signing in my stead because it says broker / authorized associate. So now you have an executed agreement. So you could put this date all the way out to next year. Don't do that, but you could, right? We don't care. You have an executed listing agreement. They're locked in. Now we go into our quiet exclusive. We don't need to file with MLS. We do not need to file an office exclusive. So many of you panic. Love you all, but you don't need to panic and file an office exclusive. You have 5 business days, MLS business days from this date. It's whatever happens last. The day they sign it or this date, which if we've post dated it, is going to be this date, right? That's the beautiful thing. Now, let's say you put this out to December. And they want to go live in June. Can you do that? Of course you can. Do you need extra paperwork? No, you don't, because you have an effective listing agreement. So beautiful. It's the beautiful thing. And this was written by an attorney and approved by Stellar MLS. So that verbiage is already approved by Stellar MLS. So it is already approved for clear cooperation.
Stop sending extensions.
Please do. Please do. Extension to office exclusive, is that what you're
No,
going to?
extensions for delay of entry into MLS.
Yes, please. Dear God. As long as you post date it. Yeah, which is why I'm going over this for everybody, because as we talk about the delayed entry, I don't really know that we need it because we kind of already do it. It's my point, right? So I'm bringing this up because we kind of already have our own delayed entry, don't we?
I didn't put a sign on, I didn't send it out.
Correct. Correct.
So-
If
so-
you do any form of public marketing, what is public marketing? Yes, a flyer, social media, a sign in the yard is a bad one, right? Any of those things will signify the MLS 1 business day. Now, let me say something else. A carry special. No, I've been doing this for years. When the market was crazy and you guys would say, Carrie, what is the home you think the home valued at? And I'd be like, well, in a normal time, I think this is the price. Today, I have no freaking clue. I think we should test the market. How do we used to test the market? Some of you who were with me would remember we would have it that this is planning to go live on Monday. So we would scream all about it and have an open house Friday, Saturday, Sunday, because it's not on the market yet, because it doesn't matter. The 1 business day rule is a business day. So you're not in violation unless you don't put it on the market Monday. Isn't that clever? But you got to be super careful because if you're not ready Monday, you will get a violation. So you have to be ready to go on the market Monday. Everybody with me on that? We can still always do that if we need to, but don't by accident go out there and do an open house. I mean, a Facebook Live and thinking you're covered because you didn't say the address of the property. And then they know that you happen to be me. And unfortunately, I'm on the board of directors and I don't get any special privileges. I get the worst privilege. Carrie, isn't that your agent?
Yeah.
We know we don't know the property address, but she just violated clear cooperation. Like, yeah, it's not good sometimes being so public. So just know that, right? So don't try to be sly with those kinds of things. Yes, someone have a question on that? Yeah, I'm sorry. Sometimes it's great having me as your broker. Sometimes it's not as great. So I'm just saying, like, we can bend the rules, but we have to know which rules to bend. Everybody good with that? So back to the clear cooperation finality of that conversation. It does not begin until September 30th. Will it affect us? Probably not, because we already have our own delay as long as you want clause because we've written it in the back of our listing agreements forever ago. Everybody clear on that?
And what did you mean about backdating?
Post dating it. You put whatever date you want here. Never put 48 hours here or something from the day you signed the listing agreement. Always put this date out at least a week or two.
From,
The day you sign that listing agreement.
okay, yeah,
Give yourself plenty of time because you can go on the market anytime sooner. That's what I mean, post
from the
dating.
day that there's.
From the
Okay.
day they're signing. Yeah. And then you never need an office exclusive. You never need to file anything with MLS. Please don't do that. I hate that. It's the worst. You don't have to add it. It's in every listing agreement. I put it in vacant land. I put it in commercial. I put it everywhere. It's written there.
Even if Rachel's adding it up, it's already in there.
It's in there.
Okay,
If it's in my dot loop, it's in there. I have put it in
Search
every,
filters.
she better be using my dot loop because there's a lot of special things in my dot loop. My dot loop is special. Yeah. Okay. And then the other thing that I just want to make sure everybody's clear about one last time, the only reason, follow me, we use office exclusive is, let's say we post dated this and we are doing an quiet exclusive. Can we send it to our customers? Yeah. Yes, we can. Thank you, Sue. Thank you for playing. Yes, you can. You can send it to your customers when it's on private exclusive. I'm naming my own one, private. Private placement, office exclusive, quiet exclusives, private exclusive, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. My exclusive, whatever. Yeah, when is a private placement, whatever you want to call it, you can send it to your customers. I can send it to Susan Campire over here and she can send it to her customers.
One time.
Yeah, well, you can't send it out mass because mass is a violation of clear cooperation.
One customer, one.
I mean, well, what are you gonna do? Like a group messaging? I mean, that's kind of a weird thing, but you're not gonna put it in WhatsApp, right? You're gonna, now, if that's a family, you could talk to one family at the time, that doesn't matter, but
Very, very.
But what you don't want to do is put it in any social media because a realtor could get it. You don't want to send it out in any social media platform. Could you DM it to a customer? You could, but here's the problem. What if they do something with it? That's why you got to be careful with anything in writing. Yes, it's better to talk, or you can message them information without the address or something like that. That's fine. But as long as it's your customer or one of our advisors' customers. Now, our advisor, guess what, guys? We have 41 offices. Now, I know North Carolina thinks they can't, they really can, but whatever. It's really any of our advisors because we're considered one office, because the way we are set up through DBPR and the way we're actually set up corporately, it's really for clear cooperation purposes. We're owned by one owner. It's our whole company. That's the reality. So I know that sometimes Carolina's like, North Carolina's like, no, we have so many rules. So sometimes they get nervous when we send them stuff about private placement, but anywhere in Florida, definitely for sure. You want to send it to an advisor in Naples? No problem. We want to send a private placement email that says, this is private placement, this is quiet exclusives. You can. Internally, we do it all the time, but it says this is for internal use only. Absolutely. Can it have pictures? Sure. But they know they can only send it to a customer or talk to a customer about it, right? We just can't. Now you have a friend who's a realtor. Can you tell them? No, that's the violation. Yes.
Couldn't we do one internal email with the, not private placement, was it?
Quiet exclusives. Sure.
Couldn't we do this on a weekly basis, like on Monday? We know which other 100 agents are going to have listings coming up, so we know ahead of time.
You mean, couldn't my team create that? If you wanted to put more work on my team, if I could, yeah, we could, if I had the manpower and could figure out how to do it, maybe. Yeah. The problem is I don't have the information mostly for most people. So if everybody gave me something that was already pre-done, we could do it. Most of the time I have a little snippet of information and it's not enough to create a nice email.
Or perhaps you can just put the address, the property provider deadline Wednesday, you give the property address and the listing agent. And then if I see that Lisa's gonna have a property coming up in Bay Hill, hey, Lisa, what property you have?
I like that. So what we could do, guys, is everybody has to send me personally your private placement or quiet exclusive listing by Friday at some time or by a deadline. And then my team could send it out by Monday or something like that. Or if you want it sent to me Monday, but we can set up a time that you have to send to me by, and then we will send it out, an email. Absolutely. We could do that, but you have to send it to me.
Well, what if
You-
you just
I
create
can't go find it.
WhatsApp stream that we're going for that, and we put it in there, it takes some pressure off of your team from having to do it.
Well, you could even
It
put
would
it
be
in the
okay.
WhatsApp.
Well, then it's mixed and it's hard to find.
We could create a WhatsApp group
Just
for
for that?
private placement.
And we could sort
We just have to be, yeah, we could do that. I could create a WhatsApp
only
quiet
for-
exclusives.
And we could go in there and look for it and be real time. What do you think?
What do you think of that?
It'd be only in one spot, we could find it right away, and she wouldn't have to pay someone to do it, we could just upload our stuff.
I like that. What do you guys think online? A WhatsApp quiet exclusives group.
We have to wait till Monday and it can put it in.
So you guys can put your things in there when you have one. You can say, hey, does anyone have one coming? Blah, blah, blah. Anyone like it online?
Sounds great.
There's so much stuff in there, I mean, it's so.
But it just,
Cluttered.
to create another WhatsApp group for the office, I just feel like it just gets very complicated.
15 congratulations text messages that you're.
Okay. I was just trying to prevent her from having to have staff do it.
No, like, it's a great idea to have a separate
Like
one,
one
but
platform, a place to go.
There is a platform. It's on the My Hub.
Oh, yeah, so it's already.
It's on My Hub. You have quiet exclusives. Well, they call it private placement on the My Hub. If you want to see it, guys, they're already there. And it's just the problem is that nobody uses it.
Right.
So if you're going to go into the CRM, let's go over
I
here.
just know Winter Park sends out theirs like every freaking 5 minutes and it's just.
But they send one at a time.
Yeah, I know, that's the point, it's like, if
Yeah.
I ever did wanna go look, I just can't.
Like
It's
the
just-
way-
Can you guys all see my screen still with the CRM? Everybody
Yes.
online? Okay, great. Let me show you where this is. Most people don't even know it's here, and this is the problem. And so even though if we put it here, first of all, you have to fill in a form for my team to put it in here because most people don't do that, and that's the first
Yeah, I'm
problem.
not-
And that's what happens. But here it is, private placement listings. See, we only show that many.
I'm not gonna sit down.
'Cause Nobody, it's like 3 questions, but nobody does it. It's what in the listing
I'll
folder.
mean to, but it's not gonna-
That's what happens, and nobody does.
human nature. first
Mhm.
reality.
We wanted to do for a company that everybody private placement office is here, but the problem is, to your point, most people don't fill out a form. So, well, everybody think about this, and then I want everybody to get back to me and we'll go with consensus. If you want a WhatsApp group, if you want to send me an email by a certain time, but again, then I have to get my team to send out an email. So that's just more work on my team, but we could do that. But I need to know a consensus from the group. So we're not going to decide it today, but I'm going to want everybody to respond back to me and let me know what you think. Okay, sound good? Okay, so okay, so we feel good about, or maybe we don't, I don't know, but that's clear cooperation. Now let's talk about, let's talk about the compensation conversation, because I'm feeling like we are still getting a lot of questions, and a lot of you, I think, still understand it, but I think we're still getting a lot of questions. So I just want to look at real quick. This is just an as is, which is my favorite. Who thinks it's my favorite contract? Anybody? Anybody not know me at all? Okay, I'm just checking. All right. Now we all see we have an FF and a GG and another, right? Now, can anyone tell me what a GG is?
Hell no.
Thank you for the honesty. Yes, Teresa.
Not sure of what that percentage is gonna be yet.
Thank you for your honesty. That is why you use it. That is exactly why you use it. Yes, Mark.
That's what I was kind of going to say. If you need to incorporate the buyer getting involved, to have the agreement about compensation instead of the listing agent changing what it's going to be as you guys go through the contract.
Okay, so thank you. So let's just look at this. The GG is not a compensation agreement. So people think that the FF is a compensation agreement and the GG is a compensation agreement, right? Because that's what it looks like, but it's not. It's a trick. The GG is really only an addenda that makes the one that we're going to attach into the contract contingent. So you got to think of it this way. The GG is an add-on. It's like have your cake and eat it too add-on. So if you're representing the buyer, you want it. Think of it as frosting that makes the one that you have to add in, your compensation addenda, contingent. Let's see right here. This contract is contingent. Look at the first line. That's all it's doing. It's a contingency addenda between the seller broker and buyer's broker, or seller and buyer's broker. That is what you're doing. That is what you have to add. It's telling you you have to add either one of those addendas. These are different addendas. Seller's broker and buyer's broker, or seller and buyer's broker. Those are two different addendas. You have to pick which one you added. So it's saying you're making the contract contingent based upon whichever one you added. So guess what? If you didn't add anyone, this thing is useless. Okay. So I just want you to understand that. So you got to check which one you're going to use. Okay. You're either going to say, if in the listing agreement, they check 10A because they're giving us the right to give out the commission, or they checked either 10B that they want to do it, or they checked 10C. We haven't decided on anything. That means they're still going to do it, right? Then you're going to pick seller and buyer's broker. We're going to look at that in the listing agreement in a second, okay? Then what it's saying is that we're making the contract contingent that upon executing a compensation agreement, one of those, acceptable to the terms of the buyer within blank days, if left blank 3, after the effective date. So essentially, you're putting in a contract with what the buyer is requesting on one of these two addendas. That has to be incorporated into the contract. But now you have 3 days after it's effective. So now you have an agreement, an actual effective contract, but it's really contingent to make sure that the buyer and seller agree on the compensation that they're going to be paying for the buyer's agent. You follow what I'm saying here? That's all this is, guys. That's all this is. It is nothing more than a contingency. It's making something else contingent. But if you've got nothing else, I've seen so many times where they just add a GG. That's useless. You've done nothing. You've added a blank piece of paper to your contract. You didn't make your contract contingent. You didn't ask for money. You're an idiot. That's because we get it from mostly the other side, because they've added nothing requesting compensation. Does that make sense? Because the compensation needs to be added from either the seller's broker or buyer's broker, or the seller and buyer's broker. Everybody with me so far? So let's look at what the hell we do need to add, right? So it's either going to be, let's look at it. Why do they keep moving things around in here? It's driving me crazy. Single property broker representation. What? Here it is. Here we go. Okay, here's this one. Seller's broker to buyer's broker. See this one? It tells you right up top. In our listing agreement, we're usually always going to have them select 10A because we want them to let us handle that commission, right? So this is the one we want to have filled out. Seller's broker, us, we're the seller's broker. We're the listing agent. That's what this means. So this is saying, right? We know who the seller, the buyer is, the property, the buyer's name, blah, 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 right? But essentially, we check this one, the percentage. We don't add in the 395 here. That we're going, the seller has agreed when we did our listing presentation, potentially, like this, we could give to them ahead that they've agreed to offer, right? But sometimes, let's say I'm representing a buyer, Lisa's representing the seller. The seller says we're giving 2. My buyer says he wants 3. So I might put 3 here. Now I know, because I asked, is the seller offering compensation? They say yes. So if they're offering compensation, I know it's this form. That's how I know, right? Everybody with me? Because if he wasn't offering compensation, I'm going to go in on an FF. You following me? But if he was offering compensation, that means that that listing agent secured probably 10A. Let's just go back and look at that real quick.
If, if I'm the listing agent
Mhm.
and the buyer's agent does not call me,
Mhm.
that my seller is offering that compensation and they submit the FF, I would then turn around and ask them to redo it and submit this other form.
Or you redo it, cross off the FF. I'm going to tell you just do it yourself. Because if you wait for them, you're going to shoot yourself in the head. Please. And the conversation you're going to have is going to take away so many of your brain cells you're never going to get back. These conversations with these people are painful. And then they're going to want the GG with the FF, which makes no sense at all. So just do it the right way and take it all off the table,
Because I just never asked.
which you can. You totally can. There's nothing wrong with that. But they may say to you, I need you to switch it, which is totally fine, right? That I'm sure that happens a lot, and that's okay too.
But if they don't ask me,
Then leave it. Yeah, you don't care. What do you care? You negotiated for your buyer. It doesn't matter. That's why I love the FF. Love it. But if you're representing the buyer, right? But let's just peek at this real quick because I want everybody to be clear what I'm talking about. I'm on a listing appointment with my seller, Lisa. I say, Lisa, for my wonderful professional services, I charge 4%. Because I'm amazing. And Premier is amazing and Sotheby's is amazing. So you're welcome. It's only 4. She says,
give you 5?
you know what? Let's call it 4.5 and just be happy. Okay. We'll do 4.5. Okay. Now, how much would you like to offer to the other side who's bringing the buyer?
Well, what do you suggest? I don't have to give them anything, right?
You know, that's a great question, Lisa. You know, I want everybody to hear this conversation we're having. Can you come over here? We're gonna role play this for everybody.
Wow.
We're gonna role play this for everybody. And this is great. Say it again, what you just said.
So what would you suggest, Carrie? Because I don't think I have to give them anything, right?
You know, Lisa, I'm so glad you asked that. I'm sure you're referring to the lawsuit that happened, and you are 100% right. The commission is absolutely negotiable. It's whatever you feel comfortable with. But let me ask you this. We want to make sure, obviously, that people are enticed to bring people to your home. And let me ask you, if you got a full price offer, wouldn't you feel good giving them 3%?
I guess so.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So wouldn't you want to get people excited to bring offers and bring them 3%?
I don't want them to not come here.
And well, here's another thing though. What if they don't bring a full price offer? What if they brought less? You're not going to give them 3%, would you?
No.
That's the beauty. You could offer 3, get people excited, get good offers. But if they don't bring them a full price, you don't have to give 3%. At that moment, when you have the offer in hand, you decide how much you feel comfortable based upon the validity of that offer, how much you want to offer into the buyer's representative. So that's the beauty. It's totally negotiable. Sound great, right? So
Yeah.
why don't we start with 3?
Okay.
Because you want to get the best offers we can, right? And then based upon what you get, you decide. Sound good?
Yeah.
Okay, great. So that was 8%.
Carrie, I have a question.
Hit me.
So in the piece of showing info website, if our compensation agreements are already uploaded,
Uh-huh.
can somebody just take it and then get 3% and have it signed and then send a low ball offer?
Yeah, but they're not going to
And
get
then-
3% because it's not guaranteed. That form solely is what they said they wanted to offer, but it's based upon the offer's validity. It's negotiable. Exactly the point of the lawsuit. It says it on the form. And talk to Joanna Watkins. It's negotiable all the way up in time the close. So the
Okay.
point is that form is simply what they're willing to offer based upon what they get, right? So if you
Okay.
get a good offer, sure, I'll give you 3%, right? Like Lisa says, bring me a full price offer. I'm willing to pay you 3%. Don't you want to put in a good offer there? What if it says 1%? Well, you know, they're kind of stingy already, right? Like that's the point. It gives you an idea of where they're coming in at. But by the way, the website is no longer listed. We still have it. It's still
But it's not listed, yeah.
not listed in our listings anymore because Stellar made us take it out. Just wanted to make sure
And
I'm clear on that.
instead of using the FF or the GG, I've been just putting other, and then I write seller's broker to buyer's broker, for
We're gonna
example.
get there. So timeout, but yes,
Okay.
we're gonna get there.
Right.
Okay, but is everybody clear? So anybody want to see another kind of negotiation between Lisa and I? Everybody see how that? Or Maria, would you like to do one? Well, Lisa did a great job.
I did. I can't take all the credit.
Great job, Lisa. Maria, come on, be a pain in the neck. Come be mean to me.
Oh, well, in that case, yes.
I knew she was gonna like this one. Everybody was like, okay, Maria's gonna be mean, so they want to watch now. Okay, so for my fee for service, Maria, for everything that we do, it's only 3%.
Seems reasonable. Terrific. I mean, you do a few things, right?
You saw everything I do. It's
Oh, sure,
amazing.
sure.
Exactly. I know. So here's the next question. How much do you want to offer the agent who's bringing all the customers to you?
I thought you were bringing the customers.
Well, we'll have me, but you don't
Okay.
only want to rely on me. Don't you want to get all the offers? Don't you want to have more people? I mean,
Oh.
typically thinking, the more people who bring you offers, the better opportunity you'll have for a better price.
Oh, well, yeah, that does sound good. Yes.
So what do you want to put out there?
Well, I mean, I heard on the news that we don't have to, so, I mean, what would you recommend? What's?
Well, of course, that is exactly right. That is exactly what the lawsuit was about. You
Yeah.
see, what people don't realize, and I know you do because you're such a very savvy buyer, savvy seller, but the buyers, see, they were paying for it before. They just didn't realize it because it was still in the price. Now, unfortunately, they get to determine how much they're paying because they're paying their buyer's agent, right? But they're going to negotiate for it one way or the other because they're going to be putting it into their. So let's say you said nothing. Guess what's going to
I
happen?
like nothing.
Yeah, right. Well, let's say you said nothing. The buyer's agent is still going to negotiate for it because their buyer's still going to pay for it, or the buyer's going to take it out of their offer. So even if you got offers and even if you got people coming, they're going to take it out of the price of the home. So usually what we like to recommend is you want more people coming and we want to get people giving the highest price offers they can. So if you got a full price offer, would you feel good offering 3%?
I mean, if we got full price, yeah, that would be nice.
Right.
That would be good.
Now, if you got 100,000 less, you wouldn't feel good with it,
Oh,
would
no,
you?
not paying that.
So here's the beauty. If you get a full price offer, you can go with 3% if you put out 3%. But if you don't, you could say, I want 2%, 1%. It's totally negotiable and completely up to you.
So I can change my mind at the last minute,
Yes, you sure can.
but I'm signing this.
This is solely to say, I would be willing to do this based upon the validity of my offer. So if you get me a good offer, I do that.
But you know my AC is on its last legs. What if they want that too?
Well, that's the beautiful thing. If we say an as is contract, you know what that means? As is.
And they, but
And
they
then
can
you know
still
what
with the
else we need
commission.
to do? And I would recommend, and you know
Okay.
what?
Okay.
I
all
would even
right.
be willing to do this for you.
Okay.
I'd be willing, as long as you give me some referrals. We got to talk about that. You know a lot of people.
A few. Yeah.
I would be willing as a gift.
I know this lady,
My
Lisa.
closing gift for you,
Mm.
to give you a home warranty for your buyer. And I tell you why.
Okay. Okay.
Because this way, as long as the AC lasts, and I'll do a seller's warranty too,
Okay,
because if
okay.
it doesn't, if it breaks at any point during that,
All right.
they'll repair it or replace
Oh,
it from the
okay.
price of the home warranty. So that way we don't have to worry about it. We take that off the table.
That sounds expensive.
Don't worry, it'll be my gift to you.
Okay.
So what do you think? We start with 3, we get everybody
Okay.
excited. And then if it's lower, you offer whatever you feel comfortable
I
with
like-
based upon the
all right,
offer.
All right. Sound that, but what would be a good number to offer?
I think you should start with 3. I agree with that.
3 whole percent.
Yeah, because you want to get everybody excited to give you the best full price offer, don't you?
But my brother-in-law's cousin's sister, who's a realtor in Kansas, said,
Yeah, I bet she did, because she's in Kansas. And you know,
she's
we
with
have,
EXP and they're really good there.
we
They
have
sell corn on
buyers.
the side.
The problem with Kansas is they don't have buyers from all over
Mm.
the world. And
True.
we have buyers from all over the world.
But she has a corn stand.
Yeah, I bet she does.
Mm.
But here we need to appeal to people who are bringing buyers from everywhere. And
Okay.
they need to understand tres in multiple different languages.
Okay.
You know, trois, they
True,
have to
true,
understand
true.
it in
Okay, okay.
zwei, you know, so
All right.
in multiple languages.
Okay, so
That's
3%,
really important.
you think that'll get it done?
I think it would, yeah.
All right.
I mean, unless you want to go to 4.
I mean, I think 3 sounds better than 4.
Let's do 3.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, great.
With corn.
Okay, you want to throw in a cord?
I'll-
Let's throw in a
I'll-
cord stock. All right, anybody else have a question? What did you think about the commission conversation?
Carrie, I have a question.
Sure, hit me, Miranda.
Okay, so I wanted to go back to the FF. I always send that in when I'm submitting an offer.
Yep.
Okay, so that's okay.
Yep. We haven't gotten there yet, but yeah, okay.
Oh,
I just wanted
okay,
to
I
go
was
over.
like, I'm getting
We're not
confused.
there yet. Don't worry. We're just not there
So
yet.
then the other one you're talking about is when we're representing the seller, but
Yeah.
I got confused because when we do that, I always put in seller to buyer's broker. I never do.
That's exactly where I'm at right now. I wanted you to understand,
Okay.
what we're normally trying to get at is we want them to check 10A. So as long as you've done a commission conversation similar to kind of the ones that we've just gone through, you are going to be selecting 10A because you're going to be putting the total commission here, 6, right? Or more, and 3, right? Here, because they're giving 3 to the buyer's broker and 6 up here. Everybody with me? Now, if you had somebody who said, I don't know what I want to give, so I'm just not giving anything. Send them to me. I'm not going to handle that conversation well. But anyway, let's say you had that. Then it would be no compensation. Or if they say, listen, I don't even know how this conversation for B would go. Frankly, we're just never going to check B. Why would they say, I don't want you to handle it? I mean, I just don't understand how that conversation is going to go. We're just never going to select B. But for us, it would just be C. They say, I don't want to offer compensation. Right? Let's say that's the case. This one would be seller to buyer's broker because that means to us, they said, I don't know. I'm only going to decide when an offer comes in. We're not handling it. It's between the seller and the buyer's broker. Everybody with me?
Do you see any advantage to that? Because when
No.
this whole thing came out, I looked at it 9 times Sunday and I couldn't come up with an advantage. to go that
I
way.
see no advantage for that because guess what? People call and, we know you're supposed to show no matter what. I've been in this industry for over 20 something years. And I could tell you, I wish I could say it's not true, but there's plenty of agents out there who won't show if they feel they have to work too hard for a commission. And especially now it's worse because so many of them have no clue how to negotiate. So they're freaked out.
And I
So-
saw liability and holes in it, going that route.
Yeah, but who am I to say, right? Who am I to say?
Well, you're the boss, you said.
No, I mean, we can't force people and I'm not going to say don't take a listing, right? But yes.
With the aspect, are you able to, especially now with like, another buyer's agent is getting the commission or not? There's sometimes where the buyer's agent, they can't show the property or for whatever reason, they're like, oh, I can't be there, and can you just show my client the property?
Uh-huh.
Can you withhold and say, well, you need to be there for, the showing and you want to get paid?
No. So Alejandro said, if with all this that's going on, if the buyer's agent says, I can't show the property, can you just show it? Can you withhold the commission and say you have to be there or you won't get paid? No, there's still code of ethics. You still have to represent your seller. So if the seller wants to show the property, you still have to represent the seller. Now, if they're from Miami and they just want to sell you your customer, you can say, listen, you can refer me your customer and I'm happy to do your work. But if they're here local and they just want to, you gotta open the door. I mean, you can't.
Yeah, it's just, I've had.
Yeah, you're available.
instances
Yeah,
where, like,
if you're available, you're not going to drop people. But for Miami, I would tell you, listen, yeah, no. If they're from Miami, you're going to ask those questions. So you're going to be here for inspections. Because if you're not here for all those things, you just refer me the customer because I'm not doing your work for you. Yeah, that's a different story. But if they're here local, and they just can't make one thing, it's a little different. But okay, any questions on that part? You understand for us why we are seller's broker to buyer's broker, correct? And you understand why you might have selected seller to buyer's broker, right? Everybody understanding that. So yes,
One question, if we do 3% and then it's a lowball offer, we accept and we want to say, no, we're going to do 2.5, do we have to amend our listing agreement?
not the listing agreement. Well, first of all, when you're going to do, yes, you're going to modify. You have to modify the sell. If they already received the 3% one, you have to do a modification of the seller's broker to buyer's broker. So there's a modification. Where is that? Let me look in the as is folder. As is. Okay. Here it is. Seller's broker to buyer modification to compensation agreement. So if you are modifying it because you've negotiated back and forth and it's different than they initially signed, you modify this.
Okay.
Okay, first thing. And then if you're going to modify what's different than the listing agreement, you need to do a listing modification. Yes. And that is here because our listing says something different. So listing modify.
But you would only do that after you have an offer.
Only do that after you have an offer because you don't want to make it seem like you're modifying everything.
So,
Okay, and if that offer doesn't move forward, then you just modify it back. I
Yeah.
suppose.
Well, you can do that. It's the same thing. Yeah, it doesn't matter. Teresa said, can you just strike through the original one? And you can do that too. I mean, that's a modification. It's just not as fancy. Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of backed off her original position that if you've already shown that buyer the property with a BBA at say 3%, and you can't then go down to 2% or go to 3.5%, say there's a bonus, et cetera, because you are literally bypassing the spirit of the settlement agreement.
Yeah, no, she is
Off
kind of
that?
backed off that.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, she's definitely backed off that. Here, I would tell you right here, this is the modification to the listing agreement. And right here, you guys see this one? You have to go to Florida Interactive Forums. I would go there because we do have it under our addendas for listings, but seller authorizes compensation to buyer's broker, and this is where you would change it, but only once you're in a contract. Because you don't want them to think they're just going to change it willy-nilly for everything, right? I mean, we want to keep them where they're at, right? Unless it went up, which does not typically happen. Everybody clear on that? Okay. And why are we doing this? Well, we're doing this to make sure that we've dotted all I's, crossed all T's, and we're never going to charge them more than they should have been charged. That's why we're doing it. Okay. Now, let's go into what the heck. Well, first of all, we're doing a contract for our customers. We know that the other side, I called Lisa. I said, how much is the compensation you're offering? She said 2. My customers want 3. I know that they're offering, right? Because she said he's offering compensation. So I know it's a seller's broker to buyer's broker. Everybody follow how I know that? Is he offering compensation? Yes, 2%. What am I coming in on? Because I called her. I'm coming in on seller's broker to buyer's broker. So in my offer, I'm going to check other here, and I'm going to write seller's broker to buyer's broker. I'm going to include that, incorporate it into my offer.
is that, that's a different amount?
No, it's because I know that the seller checked 10A in the listing agreement.
But I thought if the seller was offering compensation, you use that
Seller's broker to buyer's broker. That's what I'm doing. I'm checking other and I'm incorporating it. Seller's broker to buyer's broker. Right. But I have to incorporate it into the contract. You never write into additional terms anything about your compensation, which I see all the time, which is totally wrong. Okay. You just write check, seller's broker to buyer's broker compensation, right? Right there. Now, because I know I have written 3 and they've only agreed to 2, now I need to add GG.
Oh my gosh.
Why am I adding GG? Because I've asked for more than they agreed to. I have to make the contract contingent so we can negotiate this, because if not, they may not agree and now my contract isn't contingent on that. So if we just put it out there, now we have if the amounts are different. If my buyer was okay with the 2, they said, listen, don't worry, Carrie, we'll pay your 1 outside of, at the closing costs, and we'll just take the 2 from the seller, then fine. I just leave this with the 2%. That's all I need. But if I'm trying to negotiate more for the buyer wants the seller to pay the whole 3. It's different than what they told me. It's different than I know they're willing to do. I have to add the GG because I need to make this contingent so we can try to work it out.
But even if I have a seller's broker to buyer broker signed addendum from the listing agent, shouldn't I still send the GG just to keep it contingent, to keep it nice and clean?
If it's the amount that they've already agreed upon, you don't need it. Why would you need it? Because they've already
if it's
agreed
not
upon it.
contingent, what good is the paper? It's not contingent contract. They sent me an addendum that's not contingent.
No, you don't have to make it contingent because you've included it in. You've amended it into the, because exactly. Because that's why you have to incorporate it. Yes, correct. If you didn't incorporate it into your contract, that's why you wanted to make it contingent. Right, exactly. Well, and we didn't have the forms. We were just writing crap in there. Right. So you got to incorporate it in. If you didn't incorporate it in, yeah, you're right. You got this whole separate thing that's not even relevant to the contract. But by incorporating it in here, now all parties have agreed to this. It's part of your contract. It's stamped in stone. So you don't need a contingency. You're only making contingent if the numbers are different, right? Everybody following that?
Carrie.
Yes.
Yeah. We couldn't hear everything in the background that was being said, just your replies.
So what the question was, don't we need the GG for any time we use seller's broker to buyer's broker? And the question is no. As long as you're incorporating in seller's broker to buyer's broker here, as long as the compensation agreement is being checked and added into the contract, whenever you check and add an addenda here, whatever kind of addenda that is, FERPTA, whatever the addenda, well, FERPTA is written here, but any other addenda, it is now incorporated into the contract. You do not need to make a contingent. Yeah, don't forget to check other and write what it is, because just like checking the numbers for financing, it's the same thing. But now it's incorporated into the contract. It's part of that contract. Everybody's agreed to it. You got it?
Carrie, just to kind of clear that up. So really, you'd only use GG if I had a buyer and they were like, we absolutely have zero funds to give towards you for your compensation. So when you put in an offer and you're asking for the 3%, the GG kind of lets the listing agent know that my buyer absolutely is not willing to pay 1 cent towards my compensation.
Well, actually, Maddie, it's only necessary if the seller hasn't agreed already. If the seller has said, I'm giving 3%, you don't need GG, right? Because you don't have to make a contingent. They already agreed to it.
But I wouldn't be checking that box off while I could check that box off. What I'm saying is with the initial offer, not necessarily after, right?
No. First of all of these addendas can only be checked when you put the offer in. You can't check anything later, right? It's only good the first time. But also, you can't just check the box. You actually have to include the addenda, the seller's broker, the addenda that I just showed you. You can't just check a box. If you checked like I saw someone check a box the other day and they didn't include the addenda, that doesn't mean you included crap. You got to actually check the box and include the addenda. But just so we're clear, if the seller has agreed to 3% and you put in here check seller's broker to buyer's broker with 3%, there's no need for the GG. You don't need to make a contingent because they've already agreed. If they said 2.5 and you're putting in for 3, you need the GG because they did not agree. You have to make a contingent to make sure they're going to agree. Because if they don't, you want to be able to cancel for that reason.
Okay.
Now, the other thing I'm going to tell you, just to confuse you even more. Well, it's not really confusing, but you're in a NASA's contract, guys, on this one I'm showing you. You can cancel for any reason during the inspection period, so it's kind of irrelevant. But if you're in a residential contract, it's super important, okay? Because you don't have a cancel for any reason. So if you're using a residential, you better understand this stuff really well. If you're an as-is, you've got to, get out of jail pass. So you guys with me, all right? And I hate that you use that, but just so you know that you do have your get out of jail pass. Now, if you don't know, Teresa's point, you couldn't reach them, you don't really care, you don't know what they're offering, you can always go in with the FF. I like to call the FF the easy button. The FF is the buyer requesting the money from the seller. So what may happen is the seller's agent, the listing agent may say, we need to change the form. Because if someone submitted an FF to us, we're going to change that form. Because in our listing agreements, we've agreed to pay the listing out. So this doesn't work because this is the seller's going to pay the buyer direct, not the listing broker. So we have to change this. You follow me? So if Teresa had submitted to me an FF, I'm going to say we need to change it to seller's broker to buyer's broker. So if, for example, she came in with an FF with 3% here, and we were only offering 2, I said, well, we're offering 2, and I need it on a seller's broker to buyer's broker. Then what is she going to do? Anybody for 5 points? Yes?
I mean, put a GG with it.
Yes.
You're gonna fill this out because the amounts are different.
Yes, that's the GG. You're gonna
Yes.
make it contingent, right?
Yeah.
And
Then,
which,
well, no, you're gonna fill out this and then add the GG.
correct. Which one is this though?
This is the seller's the seller's agreement with respect to the buyer's compensation.
Yeah, but it's seller's broker to buyer's broker, right?
That's the one we want.
Yep. Seller's broker to buyer's broker. Well, that's the one we're always going to use for us. Seller's broker to buyer's broker. Because remember, seller's broker, it just should say listing broker. It would be so much easier. So freaking confusing with all this seller. Should say listing broker to buyer's broker. That was what it should say, but it says seller's broker, which is so annoying. Yes, seller's broker to buyer's broker and the GG. Because the gold star for Teresa. Yes. And Mark, you knew it too. Yes. So if I said, I need you to come back with a seller's broker to buyer's broker, but again, we're only offering 2. She's still going to come back at 3 because she wants her 3. She's then going to come back with a GG to make it contingent. Say, we're not done with this conversation. That's what she's saying with the GG. Yeah, okay, you can say whatever you want. We're not done with that conversation, but I'll put it on your form. Right? That's the whole point of that. Yes.
Here. So when you're ready, let me know, and I want to run a scenario by you and see if it's
Okay.
okay.
Barbara, did you have a question?
Carrie, I do.
Okay, what's up, Ariana?
So I am actually working a deal right now where the lady did not want to use the GG. They're offering 2%, and she only wanted to use a form that came from her brokerage, sellers to buyer's broker. And when I marked the GG, because of course I was asking for 3%, and she's like, no, we don't use those forms.
Because she doesn't understand what they are. And this is the problem we have right now. I mean, look, even some of my people don't get it, right? People don't know what the heck is going on. And so they just say, we don't use those forms. I don't care if you don't use the forms, they're on the contract. FF and GG, as we can all see, are part of the contract. So you can't say we don't use part of the contract, right?
I mean, they're statewide contracts.
Yes, yes, this is by Florida Bar Association, Legal Associate Bar Association. They wrote these, okay? These are being used all across Central Florida for sure. Okay, so you can't say, I'm sorry, you don't accept this, because if then you can say you can't accept the as is or the residential contract. You cannot accept part of a contract. You either accept the entirety of it or you don't accept the contract.
We have run into banker brokers actually.
The broker themselves.
The actual broker coming from corporate. I had this happen beginning of the year. So it is happening coming straight at corporate.
They're such
because they didn't participate in some. So this is coming from corporate, from Coldwell Banker. So
they didn't participate in the settlement, so therefore they don't participate in the compensation.
And they're sending out their own versions, which do not, in my opinion, meet standard. So it's getting better, but this is actually coming from the brokers of the actual brokerages.
Was it a Coldwell Banker?
If I heard Maria correctly, that's what this agent told me. And
was
then
it Coldwell Banker though you're dealing with? Who you're dealing with?
No, it's not Coldwell Banker. And she's like, no, you have to use my brokerage for that compensation for the 2%. And
listen,
then
we don't care about their compensation form. I'll look at their compensation form, but you can't say you can't. I don't care about your compensation form. I'll look at your compensation form, right? But yeah, they lost anyway. But beyond that, what I need to care is what you have to accept what's on a contract. You know, before it was written into the contract, it was one thing. It is now on the as is and the residential contract. So you can't say you can't accept an addenda that's on the residential contract. Now, listen, if someone gives me a mold addenda, I'm not going to accept, not a mold, I'm sorry, what's the stupid one? Defective drywall. We don't have defective drywall. It is like so rare for us to have defective drywall here in Central Florida. You're like a moron if you think that we have defective drywall. You don't know anything about construction and anything about when it happened and where it happened. You clearly don't know anything about new construction, okay? I was in new construction during all of that. It did not happen here. Okay. So if somebody gives you a defective drywall, you can say, no, please tell me why you have defective drywall. Send me the report that it was defective drywall. I would like to, because there's no defective drywall in Central Florida. I can tell you that for sure. So that you can say, I'm not accepting it. Or like, give me coastal construction control line in Central Florida, in Orlando. Exactly. Like those things aren't pertinent because they don't make any sense. But a GG and an FF do. So you can't say we won't accept them. It doesn't make any sense. So, that kind of thing, you can just tell them per my broker, it is part of the contract. It is relevant. And if you don't want to accept my contract, your broker can speak to my broker and you just get the brokers involved. They will back down quickly. I guarantee you. And that's an agent who doesn't know what they're doing.
Perfect. I'm going to get with you later today.
Yeah. And I have to tell you, I've gotten many of these. You're not the first, trust me. But most of the time, it's an agent who does not understand the forms themselves. As soon as you say, my broker will be happy to speak to your broker, they're like, oh, well, I'll just talk to my broker because they know they don't know what the heck they're doing.
I'm looking at a lot coming out of Pro.
Yeah. Oh, is it pro in the West Coast, Ariana? Because Maria says you'll get a lot there because they don't know what they're doing. Okay. So.
Oh, you mean brokerage? No, it's
No, the association, the pro association on the West Coast. She says most. Yeah, none of them know what they're doing, she says. Okay. All right. So do we have any questions on any of this?
Yes.
Oh, yes, Maria.
All right, so scenario, send it in, FFGG, et cetera, that's fine. They disclose they're doing, say, 2.5%. That goes on broker, seller's broker to buyer broker, yes, I get that. I make a contingent with the GG. But they don't want to change their listing agreement. So what I've been doing is I've been sending it back, contingent with the GG, yes. Seller's broker to buyer broker, 2.5, and I'm sending it back seller to buyer broker for the other 0.5%. Because I still want the other 0.5%. It makes their head explode. They have a hard time with that. But are you okay with that scenario?
Yeah, I don't really care because again, we're not
It's
on the
still
sell
legal.
side.
Still legal.
Yeah.
Still covered, right?
So let me explain what Maria's doing. If the lists agreement said we're going to give 2% and she wants 3%. So they only agreed to 2%. So she does seller's broker to buyer's broker for 2%. Then she puts in another 1% on seller to buyer's broker. Essentially, she's doing what Carrie Bellish did, where she wrote into the contract, buyer and seller agree, seller to give buyer 1% to closing costs. It's the same thing. She's just doing it on a form where she's admitting that it's going to her, or Carrie was hiding it and saying it's going to the buyer. But it's really the same because the buyers are still paying the advisor, and however they pay her doesn't really matter, right? So it's the same thing. You're just choosing it to be obvious about it and put it on a form. Carrie is hiding it and putting it that it's going to the buyers. However you want to do it to get the extra money really is irrelevant.
And the GG makes it contingent.
And the GG makes it all contingent. So let me go over again what she was doing. She was saying seller's broker to buyer's broker. Seller's broker to buyer's broker is what they've agreed upon in the listing agreement. Now she's saying to the seller, we want an extra 1% to cover the whole thing. I know you didn't agree for it in your listing agreement, but we want it. And they either agree to it or they don't, right? But she's using seller to buyer's broker as an additional form. So she's putting two forms. She's checking seller's broker to buyer's broker and seller to buyer's broker. And she's using GG to make it to contingent to negotiate.
And because on that addendum, it requires a seller initial, I know they have to present it. So from a negotiating standpoint.
The one thing on the GG is you have to check both.
Yes, and on the seller to buyer broker form, it has to be initialed by seller. So since it's already attached, they have to
they have to present it.
I know they have to present it, and it gives that little extra edge.
I'm sure they hate it.
Oh,
yeah.
Great.
But yes, Mark, question.
Well, I have I'm not gonna lie, 7 general contract questions, but I want to make sure if anyone else had a question about this stuff, they were able to ask. And I wasn't sure if we even had enough time for my questions. Are we going to be finishing soon?
Is it about general contracts? No, today's just addendas. I'll do another class on contracts.
Okay. I think I have one that's addendas, if I can ask that.
Sure.
About So one thing that confused me about the CDD one,
Okay.
it says at the top part of that addendum that it's only necessary
The
to
first
disclose.
time.
Yeah. So
I
is
know.
this a CYA for us to continue to
Yeah.
disclose it?
Always disclose the CDD. I know it says only the first time. I think that's the worst idea ever because the CDD does not go away. So I don't know what the idea was saying that the CDD should only be disclosed the first time. Laureate Park adds it coming and going. I mean, I don't understand. Yeah, exactly. They're bonds that continue. So I would say always include the CDD form. Even if it's not a requirement because it's the fifth time you're selling the house, always include it for sure. Because that's the first thing that will blow up your sale. Absolutely. You know, the reason they say that, and I'm going to tell you why, because the first time you don't see it in your tax bill. After that, it gets recorded in the tax bill. So the idea is buyer beware, caveat emptor, it's showing in your property taxes. What is the separate assessment? Oh, it's your CDD. So it is being disclosed in your tax bill. That's why you don't necessarily need it. But I'm going to say I'm an over disclosure. Disclose, disclose, disclose. So I would still use it because it's a good form to point out, remember why your taxes are so high? It's because of the CDD. But that's why they say only the first time, because the first time it doesn't show in your tax bill because it's not been recorded yet in the taxes. There you go. All right. So we are over time, but not very bad. 11:05. So we will continue, if everybody's good with it, next week, and I will break into more addendas and contracts. Is everybody liking that? All right. Everybody have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks, you too.
Bye, guys.
Thanks,
Bye.
Carrie. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Oh, everybody, come to the party